Mystical Levels 5. For the monks, there is always something like union. This is now the next level, the fourth level. Yoga also means union. Religion is not actually about ethics. You have to separate the waste. You have to save the environment. You have to save the climate. You have to, always just save. You have to do the opposite of self-confidence. What do I actually want? So monasticism is always about uniting with a deity. And the deity, if we were to say it in today's language, is something like the original information, the building program, the architectural drawing. And that's difficult to say now. Information fields that those who work with family places probably already know that, are alive at the same time. So this is something other than just information as text or as something mechanical. So immerse yourself like you go swimming with our interference fields in this information field that provides us with information. In the New Testament, Jesus Christ is also called protos kai telios anthropos. Translated loosely, actually translated literally, the first human and the target human, or telios, also means to be perfect, in the sense of holy. That actually means to be whole, to be holy, to be whole, to be perfect. And I like to translate that as the primitive man and the target man, or even more casually, the prototype. And we should go into series production. So this is mystical Christianity in the early days, and then you notice that something has changed the meaning and effect quite a bit. It's like two different religions. When Christianity became the state in the year 380, state religion, religiosita under Emperor Theodosius. From then on, images of the Virgin Mary were also used, so to speak, as the patron goddess of the imperial city, Constantinople and the like. From then on, the image of Christ was of course used, a strangled Christ, and as a judge who makes subjects. And you can see why the first mystics were enemies of images. Even theologians loyal to the emperor like Eusebius at the imperial court, as the empress mother, I believe. He told him, "Let's get an image of your Christ," he says. He still rejects it. He protests, even though he always remains faithful to theology as emperor. "What are you asking of me? Even if I had the most gifted painter, how could I paint Christ to you? If I were to paint you the human being in human form, then you would only have a human being, so what the eye sees. But if I were to paint his divinity, all this light and power, no painter could do that." So that is still the original spirit in Christianity. And now I make what appears to be a thematic leap. I'm going to take a jump to the experience that people have when experiencing nature. Actually, every person does that when they are dying as a forced enlightenment. These people hardly have words to say, "I was full of love, I was light, I was clarity, that was deep calm, deep peace. There is nothing to do," is already there. And that's what I mean by information field. Actually, it's just a layer of consciousness that makes our hearing work really well. And at the same time, this is depraved health information. I am now. At the beginning, I also thought there is something like transcendence, immanence, this side beyond, earthly, heavenly. I increasingly have this on my path of introspection or exchange with others who know these experiences, also because of Abraham Maslow. I still see it as a wrong path, almost as if we were being held in a roundabout without it being there is an exit. Because the transcendent is actually only what has been torn apart in us by culture, like a personality split. The apparently supernatural, enlightened person is actually the completely renatured one, i.e., the person who has found his true nature again. That's what the whole thing is meant to be. And that puts us even more on the spot. Why am I denatured? Am I subhuman? From the monk's point of view, you would say, yes. It feels pretty hellish, doesn't it? The people who are now being forced to be enlightened are often also cultural critics, but not in the sense of making it magical, but rather that they put forward suggestions everywhere as to how it could be designed alternatively, because they are suddenly immersed in the true values of being human. I say true values because someone like Abraham Maslow also says that the people who have this experience of unity say that this is not an ethics that has arisen through reflection, but it is a truth, a reality that you simply immerse yourself in, that being human is about being connected to everything, understanding a bit of the language of creation, that we are actually there to experience everything playfully and with ease. You only have to constantly push what is natural again. We find this to be work and arduous. So this is this expulsion from paradise. From now on you will fight against diesels and thorns. These lower levels of enlightenment are actually the normal thing that is inherent in every human being, and if they were optimally encouraged, they would emerge on their own. And so, for me, one of the most spiritual and at the same time church-critical books about enlightenment is the very casual one by Abraham Maslow. Every person is a mystic, that's how it is. Every person is a mystic, that's the title, and these are collected lectures in which he simply wanted to know what makes people healthy and says we are only a hand's breadth away from this unity experience. If we have such a basic attitude, we just let it happen because we trust the environment, that everything is going well, and don't want to obsessively control everything. He compares this with, and sometimes even with, the basic posture when urinating and the like. I don't want to list it here now. It seems almost blasphemous, the everydayness with which he describes it, that this would actually be normal if we were able to reach this basic state in our old age. And he then also sees that this was prevented, for example, in the US churches of the time, which were working on it more fundamentalist with fear, and you have to take everything literally. But the liberals also say that there is no such thing. So they are so enlightened that they don't want to deal with it and just fill people with cognitive content. Of course, this is completely different than immersing yourself. This excursus about near-death experiences, including dying experiences, is something like an excursion into the lowest heaven. And again, I would like to say, we are not there to find out about this only after death. This is a split in personality, which is again natural, because we are increasingly trained to be the real thing, what everyone brings with them, and the biggest enemy is the unconscious programs and of course sentences in our heads like, you are a sinner, you will forever be a sinner be, or even in Catholic mysticism, which to this day is still kept in medieval theological terms, instead of dealing with Abraham Maslow and researching today's secular mysticism, because is this some kind of special grace that only a select few have, is reserved or similar? Or why are you doing this? What is your goal? How do you know if you've reached the goal or gotten closer to it or something? Or why are you spiritual? Sometimes it's such an idolization of the method, and well, I'm understating something, but I would like to, so today I like to talk about mysticism. To go and, with this matter-of-factness, every person is a mystic and heaven is in you and we look. Now simply, where are the obstacles? And if you search with logic instead of somehow passively waiting for an enlightenment experience that you don't know exactly as a goal, how do you know that you have come closer to the goal? In the church too, there are increasingly these educational institutions, these QS questionnaires. And then I would like to do quality assurance with you. How long have you been going to church? How far did you feel you were getting closer to your goal? And how long do you want to continue going? That you also evaluate it qualitatively and quantitatively statistically. So when it comes to something that is inherent in every person, then they also understand Jesus' parables better about the treasure in the field, or something inconspicuous like a mustard seed, or these workers in the vineyard. So that's a really nasty parable where he says, yes, those who have worked just 1 day a day get the same wages as the day laborers who have worked all day long since morning. And then you finally realize that it's not some socially critical parable that Jesus wants to blame the injustice of the economy of the time, and that's why you care so much again, but that he's talking about exactly those experiences that initially appear in near-death experiences. Everyone gets to become a whole person again, and the unnatural thing is, why only when you're dying or when you're dead? By the way, if you would like to get involved, an acquaintance of mine, her name is Ingrid Maria Bachau, I don't get a cent for it, she also talked about her near-death experience on YouTube, Final Stop Love. I think that's why it's so impressive, because she simply died with metastases. So she was treated for cancer and was completely healthy, because she came back and she wasn't a Christian, and then she just asked me afterwards, say, I saw a big white magic there. What's with this white dove? I landed in Christian heaven. Not paying close attention to the Ern and Ersten programs, so becoming one with Christ is their natural right. Because you understand, true God, true man, you are designed to be truly human, and that may also be a provocative statement. Another bishop in the 4th century, i.e. the beginning of the state religion, from then on Christianity was misused to create a spirit of subjection. And that was also in the Protestant Church. Summus Episcopus was still the German emperor. I'm a little more critical because I was a Christian in the GDR, and that was a church that no longer had a state-supporting function. Our topic was the end of the Constantinian Revolution, the end of the unity of the throne and the altar, and we had to think about what do we do now as Christians? Oops, we're no longer part of the state. What do we exist for? In the time before this state virus hit Christianity, Bishop Athanasius said, God became human so that we could be deified. Those are still big sentences. If we compare that, now in the Middle Ages there is Anselm of Canterbury. He now asks the question, cur deus homo, i.e. the same thing in Latin. Why did God become human? And now you get a completely different answer. It sounds like you've broken your neighbor's washing machine, so now that's legal thinking. Law was one of the leading faculties back then. You can say that, but that's not a bad thing. But it has now been translated into this language. That's all you really had. So, you have blasphemed God by not worshipping him. This must now be atoned for from a legal perspective, but now you are only human. How can you make atonement for blasphemy? So God must now have a son who is himself divine. He is now legally a deputy. That's why it's clear that you actually deserve the death penalty. But you're not God enough. And now, there we have the atonement theory. Please choose your Christianity consciously. One is hell, the other is heaven. God became human so that we could become divine. Theopoiestos. And there's still a lot of that in the Greek New Testament. It's about the word metamorphosis. It's in Greek. Metamorphosti, tothio. God will be conformed. It is a passive construction. This also fits nicely into the Protestant doctrine of justification, because the original forms for every human being are already there, and the rest is now what is difficult to describe. This is like merging with energies, like bathing in certain frequencies out of love, but at the same time also your body system. Someone would now install the good software on their computer, the good programs, as if it were being copied over. So you don't even have to write the programs yourself. Deprogram and inform. Correct information again, but this is formative information. And then, of course, there are even higher ones, and these are always the models that appear for the culture. So I sometimes have the thought that the era of Christianity hasn't even begun yet, because it is a culture of respect for diversity, of freedom for every single person, and rather in terms of networks, so that hierarchies are not really provided for. And you can also see that in the sentences of Jesus. Of course, if he then says that everyone is the other's servant, That can, of course, be abused wonderfully. He sends out his disciples, first transmits his brain frequencies to them. That is this acceptance, the Holy Spirit, and says, "You will do the same and greater things. You no longer call me master, and you realize how far this information has been communicated to you since childhood.